Hello and welcome to episode 95 of the Pos-cast. Rabbi Shmuel Posner, myself, Seth Hellman. Rabbi, how are we doing today?
Baruch Hashem, we're good. I was talking to an alumni, BU alumni. He didn't know the Pos-cast. I don't know what's going on. Like, where is he? Where is he living? He's in Florida. He's in Miami. I said, you listen to my podcast called Pos-cast? He said, no, I didn't know about it. Like, what the heck?
It's the humidity, it causes issues in the brain, I guess.
Yes, and I told him you have 94 episodes to catch up. Call me after you finish them. Okay, I want to start today with not happy news. Somebody passed away, and literally I saw it this morning online, and I recognized the last name. So the man's name is Yehuda Lindenblatt, and Yoni Lindenblatt went to school here, went to undergrad and law school. Did he law school here too? I don't even remember, but he definitely went down. Yeah, I think he did law school here too. Okay, my dear friends, what are we going to do about that? We pause here for a station identification. This is the Pos-cast number 95. Seth is sitting in his father's office, and there's a Kelev in the house.
Yeah, unfortunately, said Kelev refuses to allow anyone to walk on the other side of the street in front of the house.
Wow, that's a real guard dog.
Yeah, right, he's real scary.
Let's refocus here. See, if we were amateurs, we'd start recording from the beginning, but we're professionals. We just let it
yeah, we just go through it,
So, getting back to the serious subject we're talking about, Yehuda Lindenblatt, and I read the biography about him. Basically, he's a Holocaust survivor, and talks about how his father put them in different places and got them through the Holocaust. And he became a Hatzalah member. I don't know if everybody listening here knows what Hatzalah is. It's a volunteer ambulance corps that operates in many, many cities around the United States, major, bigger cities. So Miami and New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. I know in Boston we don't have that. And these are trained EMTs, and there's a line you can call, and the Jew will pick up anytime, day or night. Maybe on Shabbos you have non-Jews working at it. I don't know. And then it goes out.
There are Jews who work at Solo. I don't know about
they work at Solo. The volunteers work. I'm not saying about the operator. I'm not sure what the operator is. Doesn't matter. Anyway, the phone is answered every single day of the year, from Yom Kippur to Tisha B'Av to Simchas Torah to every Shabbos, and the members carry a radio. It used to be a big radio, now it's a smaller one. I know my brother is part of Hatzalah in Crown Heights, and they get since they're in the neighborhood, it's people that live in the neighborhood, so they can get there much faster than the ambulance can get there, and there's familiarity because it's a Jew, so they're just a whole different. So he was a member of Hatzalah. So one line I read was that Hatzalah is his answer to Hitler. I think he died when he's in his mid-80s. So look him up, Yehuda Lindenblatt. May his memory be a blessing. And since he's part of Hatzalah, he knows about caring about Jews. Let his neshama go up to Shemayim. Tell Hashem we are ready, mamish now, for Mashiach, and the world to be a good place.
Man.
Okay. Now I had a story that I heard from one of the fellow shluchim. Changing
this
gear.
Is a ridiculous transition. I only know part of the story, but this transition is gonna.
But no, in a way, we're gonna tie it together because that's what we do here. We tie things together. So
it's already tied together. It's a Chabad podcast. You're talking about a Chabad person who used to go to BU, right? And then you're going another Chabad at another school. So
we got to be connected a little bit better, a little stronger. So all the campus shluchim that are listening to the Pos-cast, they probably do when they're like I don't know, sweeping the floor or something. I hope they're not taking valuable shlichus time to listen to the Pos-cast. But they should
You
tell their
should use
students.
the shlichus time to introduce other students to the Pos-cast.
Right, they should do that. They should do that. I'm sure they do. Put it in your email. Anyway, it's very humbling that they actually listen. And even somebody listened to number 94, you figure like, okay, at some point you just give up on it. But no, they don't give up on it. So this story was told on our Thursday night Farbrengen, which follows learning of the Sicha. And I'm going to pause here and talk about the Sicha again, because I'm not sure if you're doing it yet. Project Likkutei Sichos, PLS. Project Likkutei Sichos. Spell Likkutei with a K and a U and
2 Ks.
two
Right?
Ks. Yeah, but what I was going to say is you spell it. If you don't have to remember exactly how to spell it, because Google will figure it out and will send you to Project Likkutei Sichos. And they're starting off a new year. Because BiShvat, that's I guess when the cycle of the thing starts again. Arbitrary, they just made that up. I mean, it's not arbitrary because it's the Rebbe's beginning of the Rebbe's leadership, so it makes a lot of sense. But I was like, I was a little surprised, like a new year, like what happened over here? But anyway, it's fine, it's good, it's all good. Whatever their cycle is, it fits in with something. And they have it's a great website because you go there and you can learn a Sikha of the Rebbe. And you can learn it in many languages: Spanish, French, English, Russian, and they also have the text in many different languages. And you can even listen to the 10-minute synopsis. So if you just get the general idea, I think I don't know if it's geared exactly for total beginners. I'm trying to think because I think some of the languages there's a certain assumption that you're familiar at least with basic stuff that's going on. So a little Yiddish or maybe not Yiddish, but Hebrew words are referenced there. But you need to do this. You need to do this. Go there, Product Likkutei Sichos, check it out. They have a new one every week. There's like 2 sichas every week, but there's also a library. You can go through that and check out whatever you want. So we learned the sicha on Thursday night at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I guess that's to help other people across further west that can join as well. And then afterwards is an impromptu Farbrengen, which can go in any direction.
It's not really impromptu, though, if you already know that if Farbrengen's going to happen. Like, it's an improvised Farbrengen, maybe, but it's not impromptu. It doesn't just happen. You already know.
Improvised. Yeah, improvised. That's a better word.
But I feel like Farbrengen in general
is improvised.
Yeah, it's just a
But
Farbrengen.
I'll tell you something about Farbrengen. The Rebbe would prepare for the Farbrengen. In fact,
okay, but do you usually prepare for yours? Like for Pagisha, do you know? I guess you know because you know you're going to tell kids. Do you put on pants in the morning? Great, wrapped fill-in. But like,
but hold on a second. The first time I said if you put on your pants before you leave your house, you can wear your tefillin before you leave your house. I think that was impromptu. That was improvised.
Okay, but it stops being improvised when you keep using it. It's a great line. I'm not judging you for using the line. I'm just saying you're gonna use the line every single time you Farbrengen with at least at a Pagisha. So
not necessarily. So
okay,
yeah.
if the entire room was women, you wouldn't use the line. But other than that,
no, that particular line not necessarily. Sometimes that line comes out when it's needed. It's part of the arsenal that's needed to get the job done. But it's not like a just go to every single time. But anyway, no. So even at the Farbrengen, the Rebbe would, to me it seemed the Rebbe will sometimes look in the back of his sitter and there's like a slip of paper there. I can't say this. I think I heard once, and if someone can confirm this or debunk it, I think the Rebbe had notes there that he would check, like what he's going to talk about, like just a very brief notes. Yeah, but even so, I don't think the Rebbe didn't like write out his speeches, and that's something in Chassidus we talk about. That speech actually awakens the mind; it makes the mind work. So, one of the things about the Rebbe talking is that he would speak without like pausing. He wouldn't go or he didn't have those crazy words, or things like that. Like the Rebbe was straight speaking. It was pretty incredible. And I once heard somebody talking about it and saying like, for such a dynamic person to talk in such a unemotional way, like he would just talk, like he wouldn't raise his voice, he wouldn't gesture, like, your typical speakers, like doing a whole theatrical presentation. And the Rebbe was sitting in his chair, basically talking, and captured the audience because it was what captured them was the content, what he's talking about, not the manner in which he was saying this. Not that he didn't have emotion at times when he spoke, it definitely did, but it was just a natural thing. If he said something that he thought was humorous, he would smile. If it was something that was extremely bothersome and sad, it wasn't often, but it was at times where I would get emotional, would cry a little bit. I mean, these things would happen, but it wasn't like planned out. I'm going to tell this real thing. This is what's going to happen. Anyway, so at the Farbrengen that we have after the Sichos, I forgot where
you remembered where you were.
So the rabbi from KU, Kansas City University, or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, it is KU.
Yeah,
the Jayhawks.
Whatever they are. So he's a pretty impressive guy. He's always got stuff happening. It's never a dull thing. I think most of the guys actually are pretty impressive, to be honest with you. Everybody's innovative and coming up with different things and different interactions.
That means that some of you have stuff to work on. Just saying. He said most, not all.
Point well taken. We're trying to be positive here. We're trying to be positive. So he tells a story like this. It's Shabbos morning. He says during the week he's up the first in the house. Gets up, gets the kids up, get things going. Shabbos morning, I guess the day doesn't start as early. He doesn't have to drive the kids anywhere, obviously. So he lets the kids up, get a little earlier. They go downstairs, they play. And he gets up a little bit later, which is good. According to Halachi, you're supposed to sleep a little bit later in the morning, which I find difficult now. On Shabbos you'll see a little later. So when I get up and it's like 5:30, I'm like, no, I got to sleep more. I have to sleep more on Shabbos. So I push it through to 6:30. Anyway, so he's sleeping, and his wife comes in and wakes him up and says, you need to get up right away. There's somebody in the house. He's like, oh my golly, this is what's going on. So he quickly gets dressed. He goes downstairs, and two of his kids, I think they're like 5 and 8, are playing on the floor. And inside the door of the house, like inside the house, not far from the kids, there's this guy sleeping on the floor, and he's barefoot. So he goes into crazy mode, what the heck? So he starts telling the guy, wake up, what are you doing here? You need to leave. And the guy gets up, he's all dazed, and he says, where's Max? He says, Max, there's no Max here. And the Chabad house is near some fraternity houses. So he figures out the guy he wakes him up, and his shoes are outside the door. He just basically tells the guy, you're in the wrong place. You got to leave now. Don't hang out here. And he leaves. That's pretty much the story. Oh,
that's it. He comes back later, and it turns out
no. Wait. There's one more point. I'm going to get to the point. The one point was he went to put the kids to sleep, and usually he locks the front door, but he went upstairs to put the kids to sleep, and he figured he'll lock the door when he comes down, but he ended up falling asleep upstairs, and he just woke up and went to his bed, so he didn't lock the front door. Okay, so he knows the next day or after Shabbos he gets his kids and say, look, you need to know that if there's a stranger in the house, you have to come and let me know, and give him this whole long speech about safety. So we were talking about this, and I said, what's amazing is that your kids took it in stride. There's a guy, in a normal home, kids come downstairs, there's a person sleeping on the floor inside the house. He starts screaming and, run upstairs. They were nonchalantly sitting nearby and playing on the floor as if this was a completely normal. And I said, that's amazing. That is so beautiful. It's so beautiful that children who grow up in a Chabad house are comfortable with strangers or strange
random people being in the house.
Exactly. So why would it, you talk about the ultimate achnasas archim, welcoming guests. That's like that is the ultimate. So I didn't want to make a big deal about it in front of everybody during the Farbrengen online. But the next day I sent him a message. I said, I don't think you should frighten your children or rebuke them in a strong way. You want them to be careful, but you want to put it in a positive way. Like, it's wonderful that that we welcome guests here, but if you ever, and then you want to, safety is important. If you ever see somebody that you don't recognize and I'm not around and somebody comes in the house, you come tell me immediately so I can come and see who it is. Whatever. I just thought frightening the children or making them feel bad and giving them, God forbid, that they should. I think the safety thing. I hope Chani doesn't listen to this. The safety thing, I think, is a bit overdone. Like, we frighten our kids to the point that everybody is dangerous, and you want to teach them safety, but you got to also give them a sense of confidence that they can survive in the world. And this goes to the basic idea that the vast majority of interactions we have in the world are safe ones. We need to be prepared for the occasions that it's not safe. So, for example, we still will fly in a plane, even though there was a plane accident last week, or 3 of them last week, or whatever. It doesn't matter how many there were. It's still safe. And it's also safe to drive in a car, even though there's car crashes, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to be careful, but we don't want to go overboard and then become neurotic about it. And I think that's it's an important thing. So not to lose the emphasis of the beauty of the children being comfortable with strangers in their house. I know. I just thought I took it out as a very positive thing. It was humorous to think that this guy's just sleeping there and the kids are totally ignoring him. It's like unbelievable. Anyway, that was a Teichel story. So, talking about stories, I heard another crazy Rebbe story this morning. It was recorded a while ago, but when something comes up and you see it again and again and again, it's always cool to hear it. So this is the story told by Rabbi, is it Yossi Bucket in Levi Bucket, who now is in Chicago. So I don't know how he knows the story. I don't know. He tells the story. This is the story. So there was this Israeli general that was coming for a meeting of some sort back in the day. Here it goes. He was a general in the Yom Kippur War. And he was, I don't know if he said he's a general. I'm not sure if that's actually correct, but he was an officer. And he had a battalion of 150 soldiers. And on Yom Kippur, which was a surprise attack, 32 of his soldiers were killed and many of them were wounded. And he took this in a very personal way, very, it was very difficult for him to handle the trauma of it. And he was going to go on this trip to New York, some kind of secret mission to have diplomatic talks in Washington. And the mayor of Kfar Chabad at the time, Rabbi Medanchik, gives him a call and says, "You're going to the United States. Why are you there? Why don't you go talk to the Rebbe? So you feel this burden, go talk to the Rebbe." So first of all, he was surprised. How did this guy know they're going on this secret mission? Whatever, he knew. So he ends up going to the Rebbe, and he talks to the Rebbe and tells the Rebbe that, there was these 32 soldiers that had died, and he had a private talk with the Rebbe. The Rebbe spoke to him and gave him some encouragement. And the Rebbe said to him, and about the 34 soldiers that passed away, they're called Kedoshim, they're holy people because they died for serving Israel. And that was it. So he left the Rebbe's office, very impressed, it did a lot for him. But it bothered him why the Rebbe kept on saying 34 soldiers had died when he told the Rebbe clearly it was 32 soldiers. And he gets back to Israel and he finds out that 2 of the soldiers that were wounded had passed away. So now he's even more flabbergasted. Like, how did the Rebbe know that 2 more soldiers had passed away? So half a year later, he came back to the United States, and this time he initiated and called Rabbi Medanchik and said, "I want to go talk to the Rebbe," because he wanted to straighten this out with the Rebbe. How did you know? So he comes back to the Rebbe, and he comes into the Rebbe, and he says, talks to him, he says, thanks him for his advice and his support from last time. He said, "But how did you know about the 34 soldiers, 32? How did you know those 2 had passed away?" So the Rebbe points to his desk and says, "All of the souls that come into the world and leave the world come through this room. I have no idea what that means, but it's so powerful.
I thought you were like, I wasn't sure if you were asking for me to say what it meant, if it was a rhetorical question.
I know. It's a story I saw, and I just thought it was I don't know. So any story you hear about the Rebbe, you know the story about Baal Shem Tov stories? They say anybody who says, because a lot of miracle stories about the Baal Shem Tov. He's the founder of Hasidism. There's many miracle stories. Say, if you say that any one of the stories you hear about the Baal Shem Tov is not true or can't be true, then you're a heretic. If you think that every single story you hear in the name of the Baal Shem Tov actually happened, you're a fool. So I think Rebbe stories. I'm not saying it didn't happen. He's this man. I know this guy. He wouldn't make up a story, but so that's what it is. What it is. And if you feel like a little skeptical about what he said, that's fine. It's your deal. I don't care. But the idea is that I don't know if it means, what does it mean literally? Souls go through this room. Somehow the Rebbe has his finger on the pulse of the Jewish people, and that's that. And today's Hayom Yom. The Rebbe talks here about the love that that the Rebbe has for the Chassidim, and how it's reciprocal. It goes, and sometimes if you feel something, it means the Rebbe is thinking about you. That thought matters. And our Rebbe spoke about. He wrote in Hayom Yom, he wrote in 1943, quoting his father-in-law from another discussion that his father had. And the Rebbe spoke about this in 1961 and says, like, what's the point of this? The point is that the Rebbe stays connected to the Chassidim. And when he was in this world, and surely if the Rebbe, he's talking about his father-in-law, the body's not limited, the soul's not limited by the body, for sure the Rebbe still has a connection. So if all of a sudden you're thinking about the Rebbe, you know what? The Rebbe is thinking about you. And even it says, in the Hayom Yom, it says, like, if you look at somebody, and you look at them, think about them deeply, they'll turn around. Like, there's just like this energy that goes from soul to soul, from mind to mind, and especially from a Rebbe to Chassidim. So the idea that the Rebbe somehow has some kind of idea of souls coming and leaving, who am I to talk about this? Talking about the Rebbe, and this was 75 years from the Rebbe's leadership, so it's a big deal. I mean, why is it a big deal? Because the Rebbe made a big deal out of numbers. 20th anniversary, 50th anniversary, all these different things. So, and we should make a big deal every moment of life. Every moment of life is a new creation from Hashem. So it's not. It makes sense, yeah. And if you find something, and you should always look for connections. You say, oh, what's the big deal about 40? Look in the Torah, you'll find 40 all over the place. Take any number, you'll find something about it, and that's the way it should be, because everything is from Hashem. So everything and things are connected. So if you're looking for meaning and you find meaning, and the most important thing is this, does it motivate you to do something good? So that I'm thinking like 75 years, like what does that mean? 75 years since there's no Rebbe that was Rebbe for 75 years. So maybe the Rebbe talked about some anniversary of 75 years, which he did. And if we can learn some meaning and that gives us a little more oomph for this year, what the heck? It's fine. It's great. It's fantastic. We should do it every morning when we wake up. It's like, wow, it's a new day. This day never existed in the history of the world. So let's make something special about it. So there's this group of, I guess you call them, they're on the high school level, but there's yeshiva. So it's just yeshiva in that age. And they started a project of not learning, like we talked about the project of Likkutei Sichos. They took one volume, because there's 29 volumes of the talks to the Rebbe based on the parshas of the Torah, and they learn it for a whole year. And they have different levels of learning. Some just learn it, some have like a lot of footnotes, and so some kids take on the more advanced level where they look up these specific, not all of them, but some footnotes, and they study the sources, and they take like a written exam once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever it is, and so they get some kind of they get special, and so they had this big gathering because a lot of yeshivas went to New York to be there, to go to the Oil and be in 770 for BiShvat. So they had like 400 kids, some of these students, and they had like a competition for fluency in this book of Sichos. I guess they had some pre things, and then these were like the top 10 or 15, and then it whittled down to like 4 of them. There's like the grand finale, and so they have these 3 rabbis who have all these questions in front of them. These guys are like big Lubavitcher teachers and yeshivas and stuff. They know this stuff. And so they were asking questions to these kids, to these 15-year-old kids or 16-year-old kids, however they are. And I'm listening to it. It's incredible. Like, where does the Rebbe mention this and this commentary on Rashi? 3 times that he mentioned it in this whole book. And they're popping out these answers. Like, they really knew it well. It was fascinating. And then finally, the final thing was they had two remaining guys, and they had to give a little talk, a synopsis of an overview of the book. And it was a lot of these talks over here about Rashi. And so this kid gets up there and gives like this very well thought out general rules of learning how the Rebbe learns Rashi and specifics, like 5 minutes, but it was very fluent and clear. And he ends up being the winner. He happens to be a Massachusetts boy. His name is Umaner, the shliach in Chestnut Hill. And it was like the whole thing was like it was a competition, but nobody looked sad to me. They all looked like they're having a good time. And I think it was just a beautiful thing that these kids are like learning so thoroughly that you can ask them anything in this entire book, and it's a fat one. The 20th volume is very fat. Anyway, I thought that was just pretty cool to learn something and to be so engrossed in it. Oh, and by the way, one of the top 15 or whatever was our grandson.
Oh, there you go.
Nandel Chaim, Rachel and Zalman's oldest one. So, Baruch, that was good. I didn't even know that. It's not like a big deal. Yeah, he said, Baruch Hashem, can I know her? He's a smart kid. When I saw him, I'm like, oh, cool, he's there. I think Rachel posted it on the family chat. She probably did. I'll be getting lots of comments about this. Anyway, finally, tonight and tomorrow is Rosh Hashanah for the trees. The 15th of Shvat. Now, what do you do on Rosh Hashanah for the trees? You don't say Tachnun. Okay, that's good. And by Mincha today, you don't say Tachnun either. And what else do you do? Eat fruit. Okay, what else do you do? You learn the mind from the red. Huh?
It said plant trees.
So what it really comes from the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah, as since you obviously know because you're a Shas boy. So Shas
a couple of years ago, but I remember it.
Yeah, Rosh Hashanah. So Rosh Hashanah for the trees is the time, the beginning of the new year as far as tithing goes, as far as taking meiser. So you have to separate a certain percent from that year's crop. When does that year start? It starts on the 15th. So it's a very technical halachic thing. And it's nothing to do with planting trees. The trees already are growing, and just a new, that's a Zionist plot. You got people to plant trees in Israel.
Yeah.
It's not a bad one. It's just made up. That's the only Zionist plot that there is. And maybe I hope the Pos-cast doesn't get tagged on Spotify talking about Zionist plots.
No, it'll be fine. If they do, I don't know if Spotify actually tags it. YouTube has tagged a video that we've had before, but I was able to just look at the context of it because you said something about someone else saying "kill the Jews," and so they thought that you had said it, and so it was a whole thing.
Right.
And so I just had to...
Technology is stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the idea. So yeah, and the Rebbe wasn't a big deal. Some people, it goes back to the times of Arizal, having a Tu BiShvat Seder, where basically you have different fruits and it has to do with the 4 worlds. So if you think about fruits and their peel, like there's fruits that you just eat like grape. Nobody peels grapes, just eat them. Then you have a peel like an apple peel. It's a soft peel, but some people take it off, or a potato peel. Then you have thicker peels like oranges that are thicker. Then you have really hard ones like a coconut or a walnut. That's much harder. And the peel in Kabbalistic talk in Chassidus is klipa. Klipa is to guard the fruit, but it's not, and there's different levels of it in the 4 different worlds that represent, the klipa represents concealment of godliness, so the concealment gets more and more to our world. And along with that, you also drink wine, and white wine shows on purity, and so the highest level is white wine, then white wine with a little bit of red wine, then red wine, a little bit of white wine, and then straight out red wine. And then you read different psukim in the Torah. It talks about plants and, starting with the creation of the trees and all other things that the Torah talks about, the obligations of agricultural obligations.
We used to make a mess in Hebrew school because we would do it with grape juice.
Yeah. But really, the reason why this is a big deal is because when Torah talks about laying siege to a city, Torah says, "Do not cut down the trees that have fruit, for is the tree of manna is manna tree of the field." Like you're going after people, you're having war against people, not against trees. And the Gemara says that as a statement, man is a tree of the field. Like, so now we have the comparison of a human being to a tree, and we find all these different connections of humans to trees. And the simplest one is that there's roots, trunk, branches, and fruit. The roots are in the ground, you don't see them. The trunk and the branches you see, but the whole purpose of the tree is not the trunk, is not the roots, although they're very, very important. Without them, the tree can't exist, but what you want is the fruit. So you have what's in the ground represents trust and faith in Hashem, and the branches and the trunk is Torah, and the fruit are the mitzvahs. So that's the Gemara. The Gemara is saying that a Talmud Chacham who has fruit, meaning it's a Talmud Chacham that also does good things in the world, makes the world a better place. That's the person you should connect to. So that's a little bit to think about when it comes to BiShvat. It's a celebration. It's a happy day, and also the idea of serving Hashem with joy and pleasure, because fruit are not necessary to live. We talk about that there's 5 species that Israel is praised with: wheat, barley, then there's 5 fruit: grapes, pomegranates, dates, figs, and olives. So this is Russian for the fruit, not for grain. Is Pesach and Shavuos. The difference between fruit and grain is a staple, whereas fruit is for pleasure. And that's why even in a meal, if you have fruit for dessert, you make a separate bracha. It's not part of the thing. So serving Hashem with joy, learning Torah in a way that's joyful. So getting back to the Likkutei Sichos, that is nothing more joyful than learning a talk of the Rebbe. Starts with a simple beginning, a discussion of different subjects, and then we'll take you deeper and deeper and give you a sense of pleasure to your neshama, from the external to the most internal. And learning Torah on all the levels, this is one of the things Mashiach is going to do. He's going to be a teacher of Torah. I mean, what's Mashiach? He's going to be some kind of great warrior. No. He's going to be a brilliant, like whom? Like Moshe Rabbeinu. And like David HaMelech. You know what they say about the Rebbe? Like, what did the Rebbe do most of the day? Out of 24 hours, learn Torah. Learn Torah. That's what it's all about. And you think like, the Rebbe answered so many people's questions and did this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, it's all true. But the majority of the day, study of Torah. So from our study of Torah, we should be able to merit the study of Torah from Mashiach. May it be mamish now.
Amen. And with that, thank you so much for joining us for episode 95 of the Pos-cast of Rabbi Shmuel Posner. We will see you next week.
And myself, Seth Hellman.
Yeah, I do it in the front.
Oh,
and
not
then what I do is I add myself in the front, and then it's just you at the end.
Oh.
There's a thought process to this. People think I'm just all willy-nilly. I'm very intentional with how I do things.
Oh, yeah. No, you're not. No willy-nilly. No.
All right. See you next week, everybody.